Hello and welcome to Game Club. And today, Undaunted, North Africa. Join us as we, and these moody guys here, will go and fight the Nazis in occupied North Africa. I'll start with an unboxing. Wonderful. So first things first. Okay, so the Undaunted series has the same sort of MO. The previous one I think was Normandy, but I like this one because obviously this is where SOE really began, was in North Africa. I like the kind of menacing characters here, although not such a big fan of this. And then below you've got this Jeep as well, which is quite fun. I'll just see if I can open the box, just probably flip her on her back as well, just to show you what else is there. On her back is, oh, sorry about this, just see if I can get her open. There's always some difficulty somewhere. But let's flip her on her back first so we can see. So on her back you've got some nice imagery again. I mean, it pretty much works along the same lines as if you've played Undaunted, or if you've seen the box for Undaunted. I'll just pull off the top there, so I'm doing one-handed, so it's a bit tricky. Inside, oh, there we go, there's the Undaunted Normandy, and the King is Dead. That's Pierre Sylvester's other game. Undaunted booklet, Undaunted North Africa scenario book. Then we've got our tokens, and nice housing for that. We've got our, they look like our mission tiles, or where locations are. Then we've got our devices, our vehicles, character cards as well, and some dice. We always love a good set of dice here. But it looks all pretty good, so now I'm just looking forward to playing and then reviewing Undaunted North Africa. Hi everyone, in front of me is Undaunted North Africa, the first scenario. There are 11 scenarios to choose from, but this is scenario 1, Landing Ground 7. Just to note, you have the objectives of what you have to do. So if you are playing as the Long Range Desert Group, that's what LRDG stands for, then you have an objective which is to claim 3 objective points. And if you're Italians, playing as the Italians, your objective is to claim 3 objective points by controlling structures. One's by destroying, one's by controlling. There you are. Now, this is very useful. It does show you, one, how the map should look. And so as you can see here, our map looks exactly the same. You probably can just about see it all, but there you go. So you can see that there. There's our map, or sort of in view, and then of course it tells you what your deck will be. Your starting deck, D will be your starting deck, and supply will be in S. And I'll go through exactly what you're required to do there. But effectively, what happens is this is for the LRDG team, so they have their long range deck. You'll take this as your deck, and you'll just shuffle it up. I mean, you effectively get to draw 4 cards from here. So you go 1, 2, 3, 4. I'll do the same for the Italians as well, who are just here. This is the Italian starter deck, and then we shuffle these, and then I'll do it the other way around so I don't get to see what I'm pulling out, and then go 1, 2, 3, 4. And then what happens is you look at your deck and you decide whichever card you want to play as your first card. This is to give initiative, which is the first round, so it's determining initiative. And then the other number will choose, and so for instance here, I think the Italians will probably get the initiative, so they will go first. That is the only time that number is relevant, is when it's determining initiative. Effectively, then you discard that card and you have then your 3 cards which you use. Now, just to note, at the bottom of each card is a particular action. So it says, for instance here, move 1, attack 1, repair, demolition. Now, this is interesting because we aren't playing it with vehicles, but I haven't played Undaunted Normandy, but apparently that didn't have vehicles. This has introduced vehicles into it just to make it a little bit more interesting. And so here what you've got is you've got your ability to repair vehicles with your engineer. You also have your machine gunner who can move 1, attack 2, suppress 4, and repair. Now, what I would say is, if you are playing it, it's the first couple of times you're playing it and you're not 100% sure, the book, which is very well detailed, sometimes excessively so, has your actions lined up here and tells you exactly what they do. So drive, move, scout, stalk, support actions, and as you can see here, they're all put down here: surveil, And so it allows you then to go on to your combat actions where you've got attack, strafe, demolition, anti-tank and suppress, and it outlines exactly what each of them does, which is quite useful because it allows you to understand effectively what they can do. But for instance, like if you look at bolster, for instance, as an example, which is what your warrant officer can do here, so you can see you can bolster and inspire. You can take cards from your supply, which is, I'll just show you there, so the supply is just there, so you can then top up your cards effectively, and then inspire obviously is quite useful as well, because that means you can choose during combat cards from your play area and return them to your hand. So effectively, cards have been used in combat, you can then return to your hand. So you have a discard pile which you, once you run out of cards, you will pick up again, and obviously they'll be added to that will be your supply cards. There's quite a few sort of additional things with command, and then of course you've got the things to do with driving and repairing, which is very useful if you are using your vehicles, which we're not here. The same with the Italians, so we discard this character, and then of course we would have, once again, you've got scout, attack, recon, conceal, and then bolster and inspire, and that's from the squad leader. Now, just to note, recon is you choose a fog of war card from your hand and remove it from the game, which is very useful because the fog of war cards effectively are worthless and become quite annoying, so you have to use them often for inspired. That way then you lose the initiative, which is never good. Then of course you've got conceal as well, which is where you can take a fog of war card from your opponent's supply and place it in their discard pile. If there are no fog of war cards in the supply, the action has no effect, which is, you know, but that's just helpful because it stops them from being able to use it as a or card that they can just discard with, and enable them to keep decent cards effectively. Anyway, so what the game's logic is, effectively you are the allies. You can either be allies or Italians, but for instance, as us, we're playing it as the allies. We're trying to complete this mission across this particular board. Now, as you can see here, you probably noted there's a few objects on here. So you've got a plane, you've got a bunker, that's basically a hangar. We've got what looks like a fuel dump, and then we've got a vehicle just over here as well. So we effectively have to destroy those. They have to effectively capture those. Now, we've also got these here. Now, these are very interesting because what they effectively do is, and what I would once again recommend is that you have a quick look at the book. There's a really good playthrough by Tom Vassell as well, which just kind of gives it through. But these are scouted areas, and these scouted areas are where your characters can move to. You have to scout an area in order to understand what's there, so you don't end up effectively being tripped up by it. Some characters can move without scouting, but generally it's suggested to scout because you don't want any nasty surprises. And that's the same as well for the Italians. On the reverse, you'll probably see that there's this symbol, which is 3 bayonets, and on the reverse of these is the scorpion, which is the symbol of our guys, who are the scorpions, and that's, if you flip that over, that's a controlled area, and same again if you flip over the Italians, that's a controlled area as well. So what you can do is you're going to move around the board, and then effectively you're going to end up fighting each other. Now, combat is quite interesting because what happens here is that this is the time when the dice comes into the game, the dice that are here, and you will effectively fight each other. The way that combat works is, and I would say it is quite well defined in the booklet. The issue is that it's the type, understanding attack, strafe, demolition, obviously, anti-tank, and then suppress, because obviously attack, strafe, and suppress have very different meanings within combat itself. And so attack, strafe, or suppress action, choose an enemy combat counter on the board. So for instance, you would choose this one here, for instance, and then what you're effectively going to do is you will fight them, but basically what you do is you will go attack and defend, and then you determine the defense value. So the defense value is determined by if there's base defenses, where they are, the cover bonus, if for instance they are in cover like bushes, etc., and then the range bonus. So just as an example, if our scout is here and say our gunner is here, then obviously that's 1. If he is over here, then it's 2, but then obviously you've got to factor in effectively your bonuses with the fact that he's got cover. If he's in a base, for instance, if there's a base there, then that would add into it as well. And then what you're doing is you're adding, so he's 5 plus 2, So that's 7, and maybe then another 1 for cover as well. I don't know, because the thing is that when it comes to covers, it will tell you here about, here you go, so it will basically outline here, very usefully, it's the very first, sorry no, it's one of the scenarios here, but it's well outlined in what effectively cover means, because if you see here, if you look at, I'm just trying to find the right page, if you look here, when it says cover bonus, the value printed on the tile that the combat counter is on, no cover bonus is granted for a demolition action. So as you can see here, this number here, so this for instance would be 1. I don't know if you can see, I'll show you just here. So cover bonus of 1 there, and there you are. Now, these tiles are brilliant. I love this. I'll go through the review in a minute just to explain to you, but long story short, that's pretty much the game. It is that simple. It's not overly sophisticated. It doesn't want to be overly sophisticated. It actually works quite well as a 2-player game. And yeah, anyway, I'll come back with a review, but that's pretty much how you play it. Games like Undaunted and Undaunted North Africa, so Undaunted Normandy, are difficult to kind of discuss because there is a real sort of warmth to the games, in particular in the gaming community, and there is a real positivity towards it, and I honestly can't find much in the way that I dislike about the game, because I think that actually the game is really good. What it does well is it takes the kind of push and thrust of war games, makes it far more dynamic and also far more simplistic, but not in a way that oversimplifies it. It still contains enough of what I would say is a bite, and I mean that in the sense of the fact that the game's mechanics are still solid enough that you feel like you're in the cut and thrust of a combat situation, but you're not then hampered by the fact that it's kind of clunky movement, clunky mechanics, and that there's clunky objective, because the problem with some military games is the objectives are so broad and so vast, i.e. you've got to defeat your opposition, that you become slightly sort of, I guess you say, bogged down in this kind of constant push forward and shoot and defence and attack. Whereas what Undaunted, and especially we haven't played Normandy, but Undaunted North Africa does is, it allows us to fix on a point and say, right, this is what you have to do. All of the scenarios, 1 to 11, are like that. They have this, here's what you have to achieve. Once you've achieved it, the game's over. And that, I think, is its real plus point. That, alongside 2 other things. The tiles and the tile structures are brilliant. Absolutely brilliant. Well done to the creators of this. What they've done is they've allowed a very simple set of tiles to be absolutely utilisable across a wider berth. And in fact, actually, I was quite saddened by the fact there's only 11 scenarios in there, but I think that there are probably people who will play this and come up with their own scenarios and probably then just pitch to other people and say, here's a scenario I've come up with. Because there's enough there, there's enough depth there. It might make it that not every game is the same. In fact, I probably feel that most games are quite similar. If you play a scenario once or twice, you kind of flesh out bits and bobs, although if you're playing against someone who has played it, then it makes it quite interesting. But there is enough there to kind of expand further, and I suspect that they will do expansions after that. Then, of course, you've got the rulebook, which is the only thing that lets the game down, because it's clunky, it's heavy, it's over verbose, it feels like it's got too much to say for itself, and unfortunately, sadly, it does. It should be more succinct, and that's why I recommended Tom Vassal's brilliant review, because what he does in the Dice Tower is he just gets to the nitty-gritty, gets to the point and tells you exactly what you need to know. Because I think that if you start with this, you might end up going, oh god, I don't want to play this game. However, that's not the same as the scenarios, which are brilliant, absolutely brilliant, well written, well put out, succinct, and what they do is they make you engage with it, because it gives you, once again, as I said all the way back at the start, it's about the fact that you have something to achieve. It's the achievement, this is your goal, once you do it, you complete the game. And that is the strength of Undaunted. Undaunted North Africa's true strength, and by that I mean the best portion of it is the fact that you can understand there's an objective and you can get to that goal. Brilliant stuff. So Undaunted North Africa, excellent game, well worth your time and money. Please go out and get it. That's Game Club, I'm Simon, and that was Undaunted North Africa.